What's going on, guys? I'm going to read for you a short story from this novel I published. I also designed the cover. Um, this is from the Bible. That's a proverb from the Bible that I like, and I could just explain the cover later. But let's get into the short story now. And yeah, this was written like a Guy Ritchie film. It starts in the beginning in the action, but you don't really know why, and then has table of contents, has everything. But we're gonna go to where it all started. Just it's a short story. It's only a couple of pages, so it's like 20 pages. I don't think I'm gonna read the whole thing. If anyone wants to read the whole thing after, let me know. I'll read it for you. But I'll just read this part. I'll read it for you how it all started. August 1987. Okay. I'm gonna put this camera down somewhere for you. But yo, it was a nice sunny day in the small town of Blaj, Romania. P, who had turned 3 at the end of September, was walking hand in hand with his 7-year-old cousin Joe. They were coming back from the corner store on Gheorghe Lazar Street, walking towards his grandma's house where he lived. The sky was blue, and all the hills and trees surrounding the small city where he lived were green. It looked like an image right out of a fairy tale to the small 2-year-old who had no idea about things like politics, the communist government that had Romania and its people in a chokehold since the late 1940s, or any of the evil that filled the world into which he was born. They started walking across the bridge over the Ternapa River that ran past the town. The bridge was roughly 75 meters long and 9 meters tall, as P later found out. The water wasn't much more than a meter deep, and it was dark with a strong current. As they were walking across the bridge without a warrior carrying the world, P didn't hear that somebody was coming from behind. Suddenly, 2 arms picked him up, and the next thing P felt was the speed of the wind on his face as he flew down closer and closer to the dark water. He was falling face first, yet he felt like he was flying to the side, and he landed with a loud thud, chest first, on the single small sand dune towards the opposite bank of the river. The hard landing knocked the wind out of him, and he immediately felt a sharp pain in his left arm as he got a mouthful of sand and water. The sand dune was so small that his legs hung over the side in the water, which seemed much faster to P now than it did a few moments ago from atop the bridge. He was wondering what had happened as he heard his cousin screaming. He tried to lift himself, but his left arm was limp and wouldn't let him. He lay in the sand, gripping onto the dune with his right arm so that the fast dark water wouldn't sweep him away. As the water flowed over his legs on one end, he was spitting sand out the other. He lay there helplessly, face down in the sand, with half of his body on the small sand dune and half in the water. His arm hurt. He wondered why it was limp and why it was so painful to move. He looked up over his right shoulder and wondered if anybody was going to come get him before the water that was rushing all around him got him. He saw people coming onto the bridge and looking down at him over the railing. They all yelled at him, "Don't go in the water, kid. Don't go in the water." Why would I go in the water when I can't even move and I don't know how to swim? He thought to himself. These people must be really stupid, thinking I'm that stupid. That's the last thing I would do. He looked up in pain and asked himself, who threw me over? Who would do something like this to me? And why? What did I do? He saw more and more people coming on the bridge to look down at him, and not one came to help him. He still wondered if anybody would come and lift him out before the current swept him away. He tried calling out, but only sand came out of his mouth. His arm was sending sharp pangs of pain through his body every time he moved. He just lay there hoping that someone would come to pick him up. He felt completely helpless. People were still coming to look over the bridge. They all kept yelling at him not to go in the water. These people are idiots, thought P to himself. Why don't they come and get me already if they want to help me so much? He lay covered in sand, unable to move, and asked himself, what's wrong with all these people? Why are they just standing around and not helping me? He looked at all the faces staring down at him, and he wondered if whoever threw him was looking down as well. He felt hurt physically and emotionally. He couldn't understand why anyone would do this to him, or why none of the people gawking came to get his broken body out of the water. If he were bigger and saw a broken baby in the water, he'd go help him. These people are pieces of shit, he thought. They are willing to let this water drown me instead of helping. What's wrong with them? He was also angry that he didn't know who threw him, and he was angry with everybody on the bridge that just stared stupidly, and he wondered if he was ever going to get out of this mess. He lay in the sand for what seemed like an eternity, the fingers of his right hand digging into the sand so that the water didn't drag him off, knowing if it did, it was over. It was all over. He kept wondering why his arm was so limp and useless, feeling like the helpless toddler that he was, his fate in the hands of people that would rather see him drown in front of their eyes than come pick him up. By this time, there must have been close to 50 people on the bridge, all looking down at him. What a bunch of donkeys, he thought. Then P saw a red tractor pull up. The tractor was driven by a tzigan, a gypsy. He jumped out of the tractor's cab and hurried over to the side of the bridge and down the grassy bank. Finally, a good person, thought P, as he waited for the last man on the bridge to be the first one to save him from the cold water rolling over him. The gypsy got to the water's edge, quickly rolled up his pants, and walked into the waist-deep, chest-high water. He came over and picked baby P up in his arms and walked out of the river. Finally, P was still covered in sand and mud from head to toe, and he was shivering after the exposure to the water. As the man lifted him, his arm hung painfully limp to his side. Once back on the shore and on dry land, P was wrapped up in a blanket and put into the back of someone's car. P still couldn't understand why this happened to him or who did it. He was angry with himself because he didn't even get a glimpse of the person who did it. He wondered how he didn't hear the person sneaking up behind him, and felt like a big loser for not knowing who it was. At that moment, he learned his first life lesson. Always be aware of what's going on around you, and always watch everybody around you. He swore he'd never let someone get him from behind again. He didn't want to feel like the sucker he felt now. He didn't even do anything to make it harder for his almost killer. He had made it so easy that they may as well have jumped into the river himself. You know? The car stopped at his grandma's house about a minute later, the bridge being no more than half a kilometer from the house. His grandma, in a state of nervous agitation, brought him to the washroom and put him in a plastic tub where she washed the sand and mud off him with a towel. He heard the people who had come into the house with him telling her that his arm was broken. P wondered how the nice sunny day turned ugly so fast, as the shooting pain in his arm was coursing through him at every touch. He was still in shock, unable to understand why he was thrown off a bridge, confused at why someone had actually tried to kill him. His grandma cleaned him up a bit and they brought him into a doctor's house. The doctor put his arm back in place, but his grandma noticed it wasn't put in right, so the doctor had to dislocate it and put it back properly. It hurt P and he cried a bit, but he was still angry about what happened more than anything. He went back home still wondering what he did to deserve to be thrown off a bridge 20 times taller than him. That day he learned about life and death, and he knew he came close to dying, and he swore to himself he'd make it as hard as possible for anybody that tried again, because he knew that since it happened already and he was so young, for sure it would happen again, and boy was he right. From that day, P never left his grandma's house without a kitchen knife, and he always watched everybody and everything all the time, and he was ready to defend himself and make it as hard as possible for anybody that wanted to hurt or kill him, or even as much as lay a hand on him for no reason at all. He'd play outside all day, and he'd walk up and down the street singing, Sunt fichor de la bihor cucuțitul la chichor, which is an amusing regional saying about a young man walking around with a knife strapped to his leg. P was the only one of his siblings living at his grandma's, and he didn't mind. He'd be outside a lot exploring, climbing trees, and never standing still. He had bright blonde hair with some curls and bright blue eyes. Sometimes when he'd play at the gate, girls from school would walk by and hug him and say hi to him, which he liked, of course. The summer went by, and one day P and his grandma were walking to the corner store over the bridge, and since it was a nice sunny day, P told his grandma he'd wait outside. His grandma went in, and a minute later a nice car came from around the corner and the back door opened. P saw 4 well-dressed men in suits. They looked at him and one of them said, "Hey, come with us. We'll take you for a ride in this nice car." P smelled something fishy right away, and he didn't trust them one bit. For all he knew, one of them threw him over the bridge the month before, so he told them no thanks. They insisted but didn't get out of the car, and one man said, "We have some candies for you," trying to lure him in. P knew something was wrong, and he could tell they had negative intentions, and he thought they were idiots trying to coax him with some candies, like he's going to throw away his suspicion for some candies. P saw there wasn't anyone around, so he quickly opened the door to the store and ran inside, because he didn't feel like getting thrown over the bridge again, or who knows what other plans they had for him. He stayed in the store with his grandma, and he wondered if those men would come in after him, or if they would be outside waiting when they left. His grandma spoke with the owner a few minutes later, and they left the store. P went outside with his grandma and looked around but didn't see the car or the men, and he wondered why they tried to get him in the car. He thought it was very strange, and he knew he always had to be careful because he didn't have much chance against a grown man even if he was ready. He figured he could at least stab his assailant a few times or make it harder on them in any way. It would be better than not putting up a fight at all, even if he lost. As long as he put it up a fight and did his best, he knew he wouldn't be mad with himself for making it easy for them. P stayed at his grandma's house. He liked it there. There was a big yard, and they had a chicken coops and a small enclosure with pigs, and a garden with all kinds of vegetables that his grandma planted. He would stay at his grandma's most of the time, and sometimes he would go to his parents' apartment and visit. His parents were English and French teachers at the high school close to the building. P didn't know it then, but their salary was 2,000 lei per month. 100 lei was equal to $1 in the late 80s, so when his parents both worked, they made $40 a month combined. His parents lived in a building area, so there were always many kids outside along with P. One day, some kids got roller skates, and P asked how much they cost since he wants some as well. Actually, you know what, bro? I'm gonna stop it right there because I already gave you one life lesson. In this first part right here, there's lots of life lessons, like the first 4 life lessons, and they saved my life 100 times already. You know what I mean? So this right here is gonna be the second lesson that comes up right now. So we'll get that to that later if anybody wants to know, but let me know if you liked it. If you want to hear some more, let me know. If you don't want to hear some more, I'm probably definitely not going to read no more because it's just fucking depressing to me. And I already learned what I learned. It's already been serving me. It already saved my life a million times. I'm the only guy I know with no debts for his whole life. You know what I mean? Like, I've been paying all the bills for 20 something years in America, not in a third world country where it's $50 or something. No, in America, thousands of dollars every fucking month, 300 months. Me, I've been doing it. Me, not my mother, not my father. No, I'm the abandoned kid. I'm the abandoned sponsor kid. I've been doing it. You understand me? So this shit will help you for sure. I had a lot of life lessons in there that saved my life a million times. And but yeah, either way, let me know if you like it. If you want to hear some more, you know, that whole novel, I'll read you the whole fucking novel for free if you want, man. Like, it doesn't matter. The second one I already finished. I have to publish it. It's not published yet, but it's finished. And there's another like 4 or 5 novels until like 2013. If I ever get around to writing them, I don't know. We'll see. But I gotta pay the fucking bills. You know what I mean? So yeah, let me know if you like that, bro. And yeah, bro, you guys have a good day, man. Peace.